And we're back. What are we talking about now? Oh, plastic BBs, barrel socks.
Eye protection.
Eye pro. Okay, that's what you used to do too? Okay,
Yeah, so let's do a cut.
Okay, cut right now.
Okay, so eye protection, there's many forms of eye protection. In the state of Illinois, and there might be some other states that require this, you need to have, if you're under 18, you need to have a full face paintball mask. So you can't, and some fields might allow people to use a goggles and mesh, but for the most part it's going to be a full paintball mask.
So to give you an idea of what that looks like, if you want to put on a full paintball mask and show them what it looks like, it's going to cover your entire face. There is still, some openings, as you can see, underneath the face. Your neck isn't covered by it if you turn to the side. Back here is not covered. The back of your head is not covered. So we would recommend wearing a helmet if possible. If you are going to do that, though, make sure you bring your paintball mask with you when you're looking to purchase your helmet, because not all helmets are going to fit over it. It's actually kind of a pain in the butt to find one that fits unless you have like a really low profile mask.
Yeah, a good combination for that, if you are looking into using a helmet and paintball mask combination, is a Dye i4 mask and a Mitch 2000 helmet on top of it. That's what I personally use, and it's a great setup.
If you're over the age of 18, you get to wear just goggles if you want. So these are kind of nice. They do make some that have prescription lenses or have inserts that you can put prescription lenses in, but I always take my glasses off. I never play with them on. Luckily for me, that works out, but not for everybody. Some people have to wear their glasses on underneath. So this is how they work. You have not a lot of protection. It's literally just covering your eyes, and that's it. With that being said, they don't fog nearly as much. There's usually better ventilation because you can get full ventilation around the whole seal, versus if you have that lower face mask, it's kind of harder to get that ventilation in there. I will wear these generally if I'm playing outdoors and I know that I'm going to be playing at longer distances, but if not, then I'm going to put on a lower mesh. Just because as much as I love my dentist, I really don't like to go see them for broken teeth, and that can happen. If you are playing airsoft and you don't have this on, this lower iron mesh, and this usually costs $15, $20. You can get them up as high as $25. I got the custom paint and all that stuff, but this will protect your teeth, which is good. You definitely want to keep that in mind if you're going to go indoors or CQB, or if you're playing at a field that you just know is going to have some smaller engagement distances. I know when I go open play, I bring this with, because when I go to certain fields at our local paintball field, I'll wear this on some of them and I won't wear it on others, so it just kind of depends.
Yeah, so speaking of mesh, there is another piece of protection that is also made of mesh, is goggles. Now many people wear those because you don't have to worry about fogging. Those never ever wear mesh eye protection, because people could use really crappy BBs and they can break, and even regular BBs can, like if a gun is powerful enough, it can actually puncture through that mesh, and it's just very unsafe to use.
And I can vouch for that personally. I've had many a BBs, and I've seen mesh goggles made with mesh that have this far of an opening, which isn't that much, honestly. It's meant to protect your mouth from an airsoft BB. That's specifically what this was designed for. But I've had BBs split, and I've had fragments come in, and parts of BBs, I should say, land inside my mouth or hit against my cheeks or whatnot. And granted, this will slow the velocity of that down, so for your face, it doesn't really matter so much. But when we're talking about your eyes, I don't care if that thing's moving at 30 miles an hour or 3 miles an hour. You don't want that in your eye, especially if it's broken. Then you've got jagged pieces to deal with, and no, you don't want to deal with that. So stay away from mesh goggles. That is the one caveat, big thing to take away from this part of the video. So,
yeah, that's eye protection.
Let's talk about barrel socks. So you might have wondered what this thing is. It's called a barrel sock, barrel glove, barrel cover, whatever. You can usually find these at any field that you're going to go play at. They'll generally sell them. If they run paintball at those fields, they'll sell them for those too. And honestly, the paintball ones are much beefier and sturdier than this. So I would actually recommend that if you're new, starting out, don't have really good trigger discipline, that type of thing. But basically what the purpose of this is it's designed to keep BBs from leaving the barrel of your gun. I shouldn't say the barrel of your gun, but the front end of your gun to become a danger to others. So whenever you're in a safe zone or an area that you shouldn't be firing, you throw that puppy on, you take your magazine out of your gun, and then you're good to go. You should be completely safe with this on.
Yeah, but I have seen many fields that don't require these barrel socks. That is okay if you are going to do that. We highly don't recommend not using barrel sock, even if they don't require it. It's not much of a hassle. It's not much of a hassle.
And these things aren't that expensive. I think the most I've ever seen a barrel sock go for was like $7, which that was like holy cow. But you can get these on eVike, and I'm not endorsing eVike, but you can get them on eVike for about $2 each. You can find ones that are really big that'll go over a suppressor. You can find little tiny ones that are good for like reaching inside of a gun if you have like a weird rail set up. It just kind of depends on what you're looking for. And you just take it on and take it off, like so. It's pretty easy. You go out there, you shoot your gun, you play your game, and then when you're done, you take that mag out, you clear your gun, which we'll go over that in a few minutes here, and then you throw your barrel sock on, like so. And then they all come with elastic. You can stretch it past your pistol grip, or if you have something up front on your rail that you can attach it to, that works too. But that's just a very important piece of safety. Everyone should have these. Even if you have a rental gun, it should come with one on. If you don't know what this is and you're playing, you need to find out. Even if your field doesn't require it, still highly recommend it. Going over to the clearing of the gun, like I said, we were just going to talk about. I'm looking for my magazine. Do you know where that's at? Oh, it's right over there.
Oh.
Yep. So, when you play airsoft, there are two types of magazines. There's high caps and mid caps. Doesn't really matter for the purposes of this video. We're not going to get into that with this, but this is what holds your BBs most of the time. Most guns use a magazine of some sort, whether it's an M4, an AK, a pistol, what have you. This is what holds your BBs. So without this in the gun, in theory, it should be safe. It's not always the case though when you get to that. So when you put this in, you're going to have BBs go into your hop-up chamber, which is this little thing right here. So that is how it gets into the barrel, and then it can fire. So when you're done, you're going to take your magazine out, and in theory, you're probably thinking right now, okay, there's no BBs in this gun, it's totally safe. You'd be wrong, okay? Just like a real gun, you can keep a BB in this hop-up chamber, whether or not you realize it. Sometimes they fall out, sometimes they don't. So you don't actually know for sure. That is why whenever I take my magazine out and I'm getting ready to walk off the field, I will shoot the gun 4 times towards the ground or in a safe direction. The reason for that is once to clear it, the second time double checks to make sure it's clear, and if I still see it's clearing, I shoot it 4 times so I decompress the spring in my gearbox. It's just can prolong the life of the gearbox. So
This does not only apply to AEGs. For gas blowbacks, it is a given if you don't finish your mag that, like on AEGs, if you finish your mag, chances are there could still be a BB in there because usually they don't feed every last BB. Most AEGs don't. But for gas blowback, if you don't finish the mag, it's a given that there's still running in the chamber. So.
Correct. One thing I will say though is if you take a magazine out of a gas blowback gun, where's my pistol? Here it is. So if you take a magazine out of the gun, that is the power source for that gun.
I have seen some guns that have CO2 on them.
Yeah, sometimes that's true. I take that back. Sometimes you have your power source inside of your gun. So if like the CO2 canister sitting inside of that, then you know that's not the case. So if you have like a little tiny thin mag, you know the power source is inside the gun. So if that is the case, then yes, you definitely have a BB in the chamber. Pop, 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 and then you're good.
For most cases.
If it's like a blowback design, a gun, there are some blowbacks that have the power source, the CO2, in the grip of the gun, but most of them are operating out of a magazine that carries the power source. So if you take the magazine out on a gas blowback gun, most of the time it will be safe, even if there is a BB in the chamber. going back to AEGs for a second, there is one thing I did want to talk about, and that's what I personally call a runaway AEG. It doesn't happen too often, especially if you have like a mid to high quality gun, you're really not going to run a chance of that. I know for a fact on some of the older A&K saws, this was a huge issue I saw all the time. You'd see a buddy out there on the field and they'd be firing, and it's a full auto gun, and they'd be firing and they'd take their finger off the trigger and the gun would keep shooting. And the guy would freak out and go, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on. And I had one guy actually freak out and go and light me up, which was not cool. So he didn't know what to do. If that does ever happen, immediately find your battery and unplug it. It will not fire without that battery plugged in. I will say this, if that is an issue that happened with your gun, I would be very hesitant about when you plug that battery in next time, because there is a decent chance that it will fire again the second that battery makes contact. So you don't want to do that in the safe zone. That would be something to do on the field with full face and eye protection on. Okay. Sorry, I covered our list there.
Cut.
We got shoot plastic babies, barrel sacks, gun bags, and cases, boxes, that type of stuff.
Transporting.
Transport. Okay. So we're going to talk about how to transport these lovely little things around. So we all love to play with them, but we need to be careful about where we play. Let's actually cover that first. So where you play airsoft, that is hugely important. I know personally when I first started playing airsoft, I actually was breaking the law.
Yeah, that's me too.
Quite a bit. And a lot of people start out that way. And I'm not saying good, bad. It's not going to help their sport though, and a lot of times nowadays you can get in a lot of trouble for it. So you want to be very careful about where you're playing. You want to play on private property that is sanctioned, that you're allowed to play airsoft on. There are some villages, like I know in the city of Chicago, it's actually illegal to fire an airsoft gun in city limits. So even if you have a nice big open private property in Chicago, can't shoot. Can't even target shoot. Let alone play a game.
Yeah, if you do have a private property and a big amount of land, just make sure
and it's legal.
Yeah, and if it's legal, if you have neighbors that are kind of close to your house, I would probably wouldn't even go outside and run with your airsoft guns, but just...
Or if you are going to do that, make sure you're in contact with those neighbors.
Yeah.
Make sure that they're aware that, hey, this is an airsoft gun, I'm going to come out here and target shoot every now and then, or check my gun, make sure my hop-up's good, or what have you. Communication's good, but, respect your neighbors on that piece as well. Especially if they got younger kids and stuff like that, they're probably not going to want you running around with what looks like an assault rifle in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So getting back to the whole safe places to play. Private property is one, as long as you have permission from the owner to be there and whatnot, that's an okay place to play, again, if it's legal. Ideally though, you're going to either go to a paintball field that has airsoft allowed, or an airsoft only field, or sometimes organizations will rent out abandoned warehouses or other types of buildings like that. With full permission from the owner and whatnot, they'll be paying rent and doing that type of thing, but they will be able to play there. So it's a sanctioned space, everyone knows what they're doing, that's the expectation when you show up to something like that, that's something that's going to be going on. So, we've talked about where to go, now we're going to talk about how to get there, and what do you do to safely transport these guns to the field. That's really important, because I've oftentimes, and I ref myself, have seen people walk in with just the gun, no barrel sack, magazine in, all sorts of safety violations. Please don't be that person. Please don't.
Yeah.
So there's lots of different options for transporting your airsoft gun. This is a pretty basic one. If you've got a really tiny gun or a little bit bigger bag than this, just a duffel bag. You can get this anywhere. You probably have a bajillion of these things lying around. If you're running a pistol-only game, or if you're running really simple, no mag, and we're clear. But this flaps right in the bag. You zip it up, you throw your mask in there, you throw everything that you need, and you go. That's one option. Another option is a full-blown gun case. They make these. You can get soft shell cases or you can get hard shell cases depending on what you're looking for and what your needs are. I don't know of a single state that doesn't accept soft shell cases for transporting real firearms, let alone airsoft guns. So in here you've got enough room to fit one, maybe even two rifles. You can put magazines sometimes on the outside. Some of them will have like pouches built in. This one has Molly gear, so I can attach things that I want to. I can put like my little toolkit bag and my med kit bag and maybe some magazines over here or whatever. You can spend $100 on a case. You could spend $10 on a case. So it doesn't really matter as long as you bring it in something. And I will say this too, even if you don't have $10 to spend on a case, bring it in the box that it came with.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people do that at the field.
Yep, and that totally works, and that's fine. A lot of times they'll have the picture of the gun on there. Okay, fine, everyone knows what you have, but at least it's covered and it's not a safety issue for somebody else. And actually, I want to go back to the barrel stocks real quick. And I'm guilty of this, and I know Daniel's guilty of this, and everyone that plays the sport is. When you are packing to go to an airsoft field, put your barrel stock on your gun. So when you arrive to the field to take it out, you don't want to come out with a gun without a barrel stock. People don't know if it's got a battery in it, or if it's loaded, if it has that BB in there. They don't know that you're a safe airsoft player. So you want to have that on there the night before or the morning of when you're putting that gun in that bag to go to a field. You want that ready to go. Alright, what else we got?
Safety to do break. That's just a little note that we could put
Safe zone?
guns, fire sometimes.
Yeah, that's what you did that. The
Oh, yeah.
runaway guns, barrel stocks, gun bags, orange chips under 18.
Well, we got safe zones.
Safe zone. So why don't you explain what a safe zone is, Daniel?
Okay. So, at your field, if a field does not have this, you probably shouldn't be playing there.
Yeah,
If it's a public field, but every single airsoft field or / paintball field will have a safe zone. Now, this is also known as the staging, or there's a lot of names for safe zones, but it is basically where you're going to put your stuff, and this is where there is no active fire going on, or no games being played, and this is just the normal load your guns up, eat your food, whatever.
This is an area too that you're not gonna wear your eye protection in,
Yeah, you
so
don't
it's
need
really
eye
important. It's called the safe zone. You gotta make sure you're being very safe in that area. Sometimes there are safe zones on the field too, and that's just generally I define a safe zone as anywhere you can't bring a loaded, ready to fire gun, ready to go. I've seen some safe zones on the field, like I know our local field, Black Ops Airsoft, has safe zones on occasion in the field, especially like at the forward operating bases or at the team's bases. There'll be like a little briefing room that you can go into, take your goggles off, defog, that type of thing. Most people just put their guns on the outside, but if you aren't going to do that, you can just like, no, I just bought this $500 killing machine and I don't want it to touch the ground. Mag out, barrel stock on, clear it, and then you can go in. But there are sometimes safe zones on the field, so that's something to be aware of, and check with your refs to see if there are any safe zones on the field that you need to be aware of before you walk in there with like a loaded gun like an idiot.
Yeah.
Safe zones. Orange tips. I'm just going to use the pistol. Okay. So, orange tips. Every single airsoft gun ever
In the U.S.
in the U.S. That's a good point. So if you even if you import it, it will come with an orange tip. It is a law. It's a federal law for shipping. That also means if you are going to ship an airsoft gun, it must have an orange tip on it. If you took yours off, you can put a piece of tape on it, you can paint it, you can do whatever. That'll legally qualify for that. With that being said, it is actually legal to remove your orange tips from your airsoft guns. A lot of people don't know that, don't realize that. It is legal to do that. depending on your state and local ordinances. That's the huge thing there. Some places do require you to have them on your gun. With that being said, I have not seen a single airsoft or paintball field that requires them.
Yeah.
They encourage them, it's not required. Now, with that being said, if you are under the age of 18, I highly recommend that you keep these things on your guns, or you give your guns to your parents to lock up. No offense, but under the age of 18, people tend to make some stupid decisions sometimes. I've been there, I've done that. Like I said, I started, airsofting in Forest Reserve, so not a great choice, obviously. Glad I kept my orange tip on my gun then, because, cops are out there, this doesn't even have a big orange tip. If I have this in a holster, this looks real. That orange tip is covered up.
That actually reminds me of something. You never want to go into public even just with a holster on. I have seen people, and actually one of our team members did this. We were going to get food, and he kept his holster on. And me and him, we didn't think anything was going to be wrong with that. But if you're in public, you never want to have any sort of holster on. Obviously, not your airsoft rifle or pistol.
Yeah, you don't want to bring any guns with you in public. I know there's been issues with that in the past at one of our local fields, and that's actually now a part of their safety brief at the beginning of the day, which we should probably talk about safety briefs too. I just realized that. But yeah, so there's that as well. You never want to bring this out in public, like in your holster or anything, or rifle on a sling. No, cases, gun bags, boxes that came in, fine, whatever, but